everyone, and welcome back to the show. So like I said in the intro, we've got Rich from Born from Pain Baked Goods, and then of course, my fantastic co-host, Monica. So Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Heck yeah. Well, listen, since I heard about you starting this company, I've been really interested, and I've wanted to have you on the show. And of course, for everyone, we'll give you the sneak preview now. Rich and I have known each other for, I don't know, like maybe getting up towards 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be at this point, 20 years at least. Yeah.
I'm going to say something though. You've aged very well. You look almost exactly the same, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you as well. I mean, it's great, but thank you so much.
Well, and of course, Monica, you look 100 times better than either one of, if Rich and I were combined, you'd still look better than both of us. So like let's just compliment each other. It's a good way to start. Rich, you're the first person I actually ever personally knew who was at all involved in Warhammer.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, those are the days of my past, my secret nerddom. Yeah.
Well, not secret now, man. I just blew up your spot. I remember like that the gaming store you worked at, there was like this like really intense model that was set out that had like a toxic pond and like a dude that was like somewhat submerged in the pond.
Yeah, they had like, the whole terrains out there and everything. Yep.
Yes. Okay, just I want you to know these are the kinds of things I remember. I can't remember like my own address, but like I can remember this from like 20 years ago. Anyways, okay. So Rich, let's just start. Why don't you tell us about Born from Pain Baked Goods? Tell us how it started, why it started, and what you do.
Absolutely. Born from Pain Baked Goods started. The idea of having my own thing has been, years and years and years of just being myself and like wanting my own thing. I've always liked to cook. I've always liked to feed people. Back in December of 2020, so going back, 7 months, I was sitting watching the Chef Show on Netflix. That's a Jon Favreau hangs out with his cool chef friends and makes food, right? And I was just in pandemic boredom watching this series and got inspired by this bread episode. He was making bread. I'm sure everybody was making bread during the pandemic. And I caught on way later on, right? This is just watching this like, oh, bread. Okay. All the years I've been cooking, I've never made bread. So I watched an episode. I was like, that looks really easy. Ran to the store, came back, had some yeast, whatever, made a loaf of bread. And it came out 90% perfect, in my opinion. And my friend was like, hey, that was great. And I was like, you know what? If I can do that once, I could probably do that many times. So on top of making bread, I've always made seitan. I've known how to make seitan. I've known how to do it for so many years. And a lot of people have no idea either what it is, how it's made, why it's made. And I partnered the two things together because it was coming up on Christmas time and people do their holiday meals. They want like some sort of like holiday vegan meal. They go out and buy the tofurkey ball, the seitan with the little stuffing in the middle. So I was like, why don't I literally in just sort of watching this show, making a loaf of bread and thinking about what I know how to make as a vegan meal. I was like, this is the genesis of what I'm going to start a business on. So I put the idea together on paper. I made an Instagram post about it to hold myself accountable. I made a video, it's still on there, saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm starting, and here we go. And I thought of a small menu, couple bread items, 2 seitan flavors. I registered my business. I got all the proper licensing. I went online. I did all the research. I registered my name as a business. And then I started offering bread and seitan as Born from Pain Baked Goods right around Christmas time of 2020. And that's when it started. And that's how it started. It's all Jon Favreau's fault, essentially, that I started this small business that has been probably the best thing I've ever decided to do.
I've been waiting to blame Jon Favreau for something. So thank you. That's been very helpful. Monica.
I just have to say, I think that's really, really impressive. If you look back to our grandmothers, they used to bake bread every day. And I have never made a loaf of bread. And it's not something I even want to do. I like to buy bread. And I don't even know what seitan is. And that just, to me, seems like such a leap to make sausage patties and pepperoni. So kudos to you. And also I'm really impressed you could find yeast. Apparently, I did hear about the yeast shortage. So good for you to even making that leap. So can you tell us a bit about how you even learned to cook with seitan, like, and also baking bread? Like, this is just not something that everybody does.
Very true.
And it's not necessarily unique to veganism, but I do think that there's a bigger story here.
Sure. So the seitan thing, and seitan has been around for a very, very, very long time. Its origins are in Asian cooking. It's been around for many, many years. And what seitan is, just as a quick, for people who don't know what it is the protein that comes from wheat. So if you took some white flour and you put water and you turned it into a dough without yeast, right? You make this big, just a bunch of a dough ball. And then you put water on it and you wring it out and you wring it out and you wring it out. The starch will come out of the flour. And then what you'll be left over with after you do this a couple times is a big ball of the protein that is in the flour. And that is essentially what seitan is, a very clean, very simple ingredient, right? And it's a very rubbery sort of, it's a meat substitute. The texture, if you make it right, the texture is like a meat texture. So it essentially, on that, like the tofu tip, whatever you add to it, it's going to taste like, people put whatever sauces and ingredients and spices and stuff into it. But the thing about it is the texture. There's a lot of different methods of making it. So essentially you skip the making your own gluten yourself and you just buy the derived wheat gluten. So you take that, you make a dough ball, and I make all these different flavors, and it just sort of depends on what time of year it is. I do like a holiday flavored one for the holidays, like like Christmas and Thanksgiving time. I have the Firestorm right now, which is in a barbecue flavor, which the Firestorm is a spicy one and the barbecue is a standard like smoky barbecue. So being vegan, I'm 43, and I think I went vegan first when I was in late high school. So I was probably 16, 17 years old, and I found out what veganism was and stuff. And poorly went vegan. I ate like lettuce and tomato sandwiches, ate maybe a veggie burger. And like we all kind of, if we're coming from the mid 90s, that's what we did, right? Been vegetarian and vegan since then. But since then, I've learned the proper way to cook things, the proper way to eat, and how expansive vegan cooking can be. And when I learned how to make seitan and learned exactly how simple it actually is, I don't want to give my secrets away, but when I learned how easy it is to make, it's become the thing that I have the most fun making and people have the most fun enjoying, because it's a great substitute for so many different things. The pepperoni that I make is a seitan-based thing. You put on pizzas, the sausage patties, you have them for breakfast. The seitan roasts for Christmas time or whatever, you put them in a crock pot and you make them with vegetables. So I just took all of the things that I used to make for myself when I did these, like, I'll make seitan for Thanksgiving dinner. It's like, but people go out to the store and they'll spend $30, $40 on a Tofurkey kit or whatever brand, they'll buy something from the store. And my goal was to provide something similar, but with a little less cost and a little bit more love put into it. I mean, I just enjoy making food for people to eat and enjoy. And that's really where this all comes from.
Oh, I love that so much. Putting love into it.
Yeah. It sounds a little crunchy, but it's true. It really is.
I'm all into that.
Yeah.
So Monica and I have a thing that we say about vegan food, which is like we rank it by year. So like if we were to say like, that kind of like early vegan where you're having like the lettuce and tomato sandwich and that's like your hub of food, or like that one brand of potato chips that were vegan, we call that like 1997 veganism. And if we go and eat places, we'll rank it by year, like, oh, what year of veganism is this? Is this like 2021 where it's like, I can't believe we have these options? Or is this like a 2000 where you're like pretending it's good, but it's actually terrible?
When you're at Chili's with a black bean burger, like the Chili's black bean burger was like, that was where you go after the show or whatever, and you're getting black bean burgers from Chili's. And that's that's peak like 2000s, 99, 2000s vegan right there.
We had lunch at a cafe recently, and their vegan sandwich was like pure like 2001 mainstream restaurant option. It was just a salad on bread, and like how like psyched you were in 2001. You're like, they've got an option.
Something we can order.
Yeah. One of my examples of that was a tofu salad, right? Like instead of like chicken salad or tuna salad, it was a tofu salad, but with raisins and Granny Smith apples. Was this ever something that you came across? Because that's a very like dated, like 1998, 99, like, ooh, they have a tofu salad, but it's got raisins and apples in it. It's just very specific, weird old vegan things that were like, you're delighted to get them then, but now, oh no.
Well, that's like what I call that now. It's like your mom's friend heard you were vegan and made something for you, and that's what it is now. It's like, oh, you're one of those. They're one of those vegans. Well, I made this for you. Here's my follow-up question.
Yes.
Your business is interesting because like you actually were very thought out, like, oh no, I'm going to make this a real deal business. Like very often when Monica and I are interviewing vegan business people, it's like, oh, it just kind of like developed organically and we're doing this thing. And the next thing we knew, we're going to have a business. You're like, no, I'm actually going to start a business and do it. So what was your goal?
I wanted to make sure that I legitimized everything, because if I was putting time and money into something upfront, it was going to be the thing that I want to continue doing. I want, like I mentioned earlier, I want to have something for myself, right? I've always wanted to have something for myself. So I started the business in a legitimate way. And the goal in doing so was to finally have that thing that I could call my own and provide other people with stuff, right? I've worked for so many other people, small businesses, big companies, whatever. And it's all, I put my time and heart into other people's businesses. And I know it's appreciated, but it's not mine. I come home at the end of the day and, I don't have the thing. I put my energy into it. This time, the goal was to have something my own and that I can grow and I can learn and I can provide and spread, vegan awareness, good food, good times, and just build the community too. Because where I live in Rhode Island, Rhode Island's the smallest state in the United States. So we're all sort of interconnected. Everybody knows somebody that around here, and especially in the vegan scene, because it is still growing. So the goal was just to start it, have it legitimized. And also because I put the time and the money into it, the goal was like, you got to make it happen. Right. So I did that, and then it just started happening so instantaneously. So the ball's been rolling since December, and it's sort of almost overwhelming me a little bit, because I didn't expect it to happen so fast.
Can you tell us a bit about your experience running a vegan business in a renowned fishing community?
Yeah. So I've lived in Rhode Island. I moved here in 1996 for college. I'm from Long Island, New York, moved to Providence, Rhode Island for college, coming up here as a vegan in 1996, as we kind of mentioned before, the old days of veganism, there's nothing around here, especially in New England, Providence being a small, not very advanced city at the time. It was a lot of lettuce sandwiches and, potato chips, right? As things grow, as time goes on, now you're still surrounded by seafood, Italian food. There's a lot of ethnic food, a lot of Portuguese, a lot of things that are involving meat, fish, animal products and stuff around here. That's what we're known for. But as things are growing and as things are progressing, I've always seen Rhode Island as like in last place when it comes to these progressive things like vegan restaurants or plant-based options at restaurants and stuff. It's been hard, and it's still a little bit of an uphill battle around here, because it is definitely not like Northern California where I used to live, and every block there's a vegan restaurant, a vegan cafe, a vegan grocer. You know what I mean? I was spoiled when I lived out there. And then that was a sort of a motivating factor, though. Taking that, if they can have it out there, why can't we have it here? You know what I mean? We are surrounded by the fishing industry and seafood and all that sort of stuff. But if they can do it, why can't we? And I think the vegan community here has seen that it is a lot easier now, because I think social media, the internet, is obviously something that's a wonderful vehicle to sort of spread the awareness and let people know where to find it, how to find it. And you don't have to suffer through lettuce sandwiches and potato chips anymore, because there are people here that are offering things that are just as good as anywhere else. So
you brought up the idea earlier of building a community around Born from Pain, and I'm interested in your experience with being part of a community that inspired you. So I know you've, like you said, you were in Northern California. We have a lot of mutual acquaintances and mutual friends, a lot of people who have started businesses, and some of them have been like short-lived vegan businesses, and some of them have gone on to be very successful. So who are some of the people who have influenced you from your community, where you can say like, hey, it's because this person gave me this idea, or this, I patterned myself after this? Like, who are the people who really influenced you?
Sure. First and foremost, I have to thank my mom because outside of the community, but my mom was an old hippie. Okay. She lived in Southern California in the late 70s. She was vegan in the late 70s. Whoa. She knows what vegetarianism is. So when I, an ignorant teenager started like being like bringing home PETA pamphlets from shows and being like, I want to save the animals. She was like, oh, well, let's go and get some of this stuff from the store. And it was my mom, first and foremost. She knew what it was and influenced me to be like, oh, that's a good thing. I know I can help you. Okay. First and foremost, got to give mom the props, right? Once I got older and learned my way there, my second biggest influence is definitely when I worked for Timeless Coffee in Oakland. RJ, the owner of Timeless, and all the staff there, Violet, the head baker. I managed Timeless, which is an all vegan bakery and cafe, in their like second and third year. They had been open a year. I had moved out there, and then I was the manager and worked there for about 3.5 years and managed for 2 years. That place single-handedly showed me how to do exactly what every vegan person who wants to own that kind of business to do. The ways to handle customers, the way to handle the recipes, the way to everything. And it was all stuff that was like, wow, okay, they can do it, and they're doing it, and they did a wonderful thing. So having that experience working with customers, making products, being out there, just sort of like seeing a business grow was super like motivational for me. And that was like, okay, they can do it. So in the back of my head, I just stored all this stuff, right? And of course, when I learned about veganism through, I'm probably going to touch on this, but the Earth Crisis connection, I'm sure we were going to get there, but I might as well touch on it. Earth Crisis being the band that probably got 90% of vegans who are into hardcore into veganism to begin with. Just learning about it through the music scene, my friends, oh, I'm vegan. What's vegan? The first time you hear that word, I don't know if you can remember, but the first time you hear the word, you have no idea what it means. What is that? What is that? So learning about that through, the punk and hardcore scene, and just being motivated, seeing people that are so convicted to an idea. And I'm not meaning straight edge thing, just sort of the vegan thing, right? Like, I want to save animals. I want to be healthy. I want to save the planet. It's all, those ideas have always stuck with me. And it's, if you can spread that knowledge and that positive sort of message through food, I'm all about it. So, I've always kept that like in my head as well. Like, I want to have something that people can come and enjoy. People love it. People can spread a message through it. Like, oh, this is just, no, there's no animals. There's people who have tried my product as their first time eating something vegan. This happened a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, my mind blew because I was on that side of the counter before, I was okay, I'll try this vegan thing. And they come back and I loved it. That was great. Oh my God. And that's like exactly why I do it. That moment is like, that makes my heart full. It makes me smile. And it's just like, that's what makes me do it again. And I just can't wait to have that keep happening.
That is huge. Being the first vegan experience for someone, that's just huge.
Yeah.
So how do you approach the conversations with non-vegans?
This is a great one. So I have a friend, a co-worker where I work, and he's a meat guy. And we all know like the stereotypical meat guy. I only eat meat. The only time I eat vegetables is with my meat. Okay. He knows what I do. He knows what my business is about. And he asks me about it every once in a while. And I'm just like, oh, it's going well. Do you want to try anything? I'm always just asking him like, hey, do you want to try it? And because he's always asking small questions. Oh, what is it again? How is it made? What's seitan? What? And I always, first and foremost, always just offer a take. Do you want to try it? Because that's the best way to get somebody to understand what you're doing, right? Do you want to try it? No, I don't really want to try. And this is his reaction to it, which is fine. If it's an unknown product and you're into meat and whatever, okay, that's fine. I always want to just make sure that people understand that I'm not trying to, have them replace eating meat right away just because they tried my thing, right? It's a simple conversation. I understand how people eat. I understand how people think. I understand how people communicate with one another. And my goal is always to just let them understand what I'm doing. Like, I'm making a product that has no animal products. That's a meat alternative. Do you want to try it? No, that's okay. But meat guy from work, over the course of the past couple months, he's asking more questions, right? And when somebody starts asking a little bit more and more unprovoked, in my mind, that's like, he might actually at some point just try it. And you know what? If he tries it, that's a win for me, right? But the conversation usually is just, I'm making something that's a meat alternative. It's because I care about animals. I don't like doing that myself. I've never been a pushy vegan, right? So I make sure that I'm not that. There's so many different, sub genres of vegans, right? We can go through that. But I've never been a pushy one, and I will never be a pushy one. I just make people understand what I offer, which is an animal-free product that's a meat alternative. And if you want to try it, that's great. And if not, I'll be here when you want to try it, because I'm sure at some point maybe you will. So, I'll help you there. I will always answer questions, and I'll never judge. I really want to be open to the people who don't understand, and I want to be open to my, target demographic, if you want to put it that way. Working at Timeless in Oakland, Timeless is an all vegan cafe that never used the word vegan in any of their stuff. Everything that they have on the shelves is just like empanada, pizza roll, sausage roll, whatever it is, piece of cake, tiramisu cake. The word vegan is not there. So if somebody off the street doesn't know, they can walk in and they'll order a thing, and they can leave and eat it and 100% not know that they just ate a vegan piece of cake or a pizza roll or whatever. Or they can come back and they can ask questions, and then they'll learn, or they know. There's 3 different kinds of customers. I really envied Timeless for taking, that's a really big step. That's a really ballsy move to just be like, this is our food. This is food, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have to always label it vegan. This is food. This is what we eat. We're happy to explain it to you, but we want to sort of normalize having a vegan establishment. And we don't want it to be this sort of like, oh, it's vegan. I'm sure there's been many, many people you've come across and oh, it's vegan. And that sort of like degrades it somehow. Like, oh, it's vegan. No, not at all. It's wonderful. We've come a long way since lettuce sandwiches and black bean burgers.
We have. Mm-hmm. And so many of our greatest foods are vegan, like a PB&J. Like, come on, people.
Have you ever had an apple?
Right.
Terrific. Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
So, Rich, both Monica and I were almost laughing earlier because you're in this like really detailed conversation and your cat jumped up behind you, and we were both like, cat. And of course we were listening to what you're saying, but we love animals.
Of course, she's an attention hog.
Oh, it's the best. But at one point she was behind you and we could only see her butt as you were speaking. But then she turned around and you could see her head, and you were like, and I had all this stuff in my head. And as you pointed back, your cat was back there.
She got your back.
Part of the show. Yeah.
It was really good. All right, man. So, as I said earlier, we've known each other for years and years and years. And, I'd say like we are in the realm of like friendy, acquaintancy kind of guys, like, like really like and respect each other, haven't spent tons of time together. And the way that I've always known you is through music. And it seemed at one point music didn't become your only output. So that's how I've known you, is via music, like you're just putting out music. But last year, and correct me if I'm wrong around the podcast, but it seems like 2 different ways of expressing yourself came out around the same time. One was your podcast, which I'd love to hear about, and the other was Born from Pain. So what was with that shift from being mostly, hey, I just express myself through music, that's my output, versus having these 2 new ways of expressing yourself?
So the podcast, Does It Get Better, was what it's called. The genesis of that podcast was my friend Neil and I. I've known him since I was early high school. He kind of got me into hardcore and stuff. He's been my oldest friend. We were having a rough time mentally for the pandemic, influence, just like a lot of people are having tough mental health times, right? He decided to ask me. He was like, listen, I know you've gotten better from the things that I was going through, and he was going through a little bit. He's like, why don't we just talk about it? Why don't we just do a podcast? Let's just be 2 tattooed men that don't look like they should be talking about their feelings, to start talking about their feelings. And I thought that was a brilliant idea, that we just kind of put ourselves out there, because so much of this isolation, so much of this depressing, like wintertime, so much of just like not being able to socialize gave us an idea to just be like, let's just talk and let's put it out there. Let's show people. And it wasn't, and it's not meant to just like only men can listen or relate. It's just, it targets the entire, any audience. But we decided that let's put it out there. Let's talk about a problem. Some stuff was really heavy. Some stuff we, had to work through some of our, deep traumas and stuff. And then some stuff was, light and funny, because Neil is a professional stand-up comedian. He's on tour right now, so we're on a little bit of a break. But we just decided that it was like time for us to talk, right? Time to feel better. And it was almost like a weekly therapy session for both of us, but it was put out on the internet. We did a video version and we did an audio version. And from the podcast gave me this motivation. I was like, okay, just started a new podcast. We're talking about some really heavy stuff. The bakery stuff, the Born from Pain stuff really was like another, like it kind of came out of the motivation from putting something into motion, like, hey, let's start a podcast. Everybody says, hey, let's start a podcast. Let's do a podcast, right? And it's everywhere nowadays. And it's great. I love that. I love that there's a podcast for everything nowadays. But we put it into motion and it happened and we were doing it. And then I was like, then that December watching that chef show came around and I was like, I'm going to make bread. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do it. It was this like, because I did it once I realized I'm the kind of person that it really takes a lot for me to get over the hump of like, I can't really do that. There's too many obstacles. But once I started putting myself out there, talking about like some serious stuff with my best friend, and then putting it out there in a podcast, I was like, wait, if I can do that, that's some really heavy stuff on a different level. Why can't I just start a business? And that's how the motivation and the like, I'm going to do this thing kind of came about. I had that momentum, Neil and I just started talking and had that momentum. I felt really good about myself. I started turning things around a little bit, and both things kind of went hand in hand. It's that just like positive forward momentum of feeling like you can't do something or shouldn't do something. And then you do it. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. It was that easy. And that's how Born from Pain started too. And a little side note on Born from Pain, I mentioned, I did go through, had a really rough year. A lot of us did. I had a very rough year, went through some really deep things. And the Born from Pain name is like 3 or 4 levels of what it means. There's a lot that goes into it. And the Born from Pain is a literal translation of what I had went through. And one of the reasons why it exists, it was born out of this emotional pain and stuff that I had went through, which motivated me to start the bakery itself. So there's a lot there, but it's those two things definitely go hand in hand.
It's really inspiring.
Thanks. Yeah, the podcast is something I never thought I would have done topic wise. I've done podcasts before. I did a podcast on Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone. I did with my best friend for a year. We did that. Lighthearted stuff, music podcast, guesting on like things, music related or game related. And then when it came around to doing a podcast about, my own personal mental health and men's mental health, I was like, I'm not a professional, but I went through a lot and I got to the opposite of where I was. I went through therapy, I did all this stuff. And then I got to the other side, and when somebody who is at their deepest low and feels like there's no help, hearing somebody say, I was there and I was able to get through it and I'm on the other side of it. That's another goal. That was a goal for me, that if that helps one person, if somebody just needs to hear those words and they look for the help or they get the help that they need to turn around whatever situation it is, that's the kind of person I am. I'm a helper, so I put that stuff out there in hopes that it helps someone in need or might be in that kind of situation. So again, like, as you can tell, like with my food thing, I like to feed people. I like to see people happy. With the podcast, I just want people to feel better. I'm a pleaser, you know what I mean? So that's where it all comes from.
All right, Rich, how do you differentiate your sense of self from your business? It's clear you're really passionate about both.
Yeah. Well, I thought about that question a little bit. And I actually had to look at it a few times, and it's like, how am I going to answer this question, right? How am I going to answer this question? And I feel like I am a singular entity when it comes to it, because I am it sounds weird to say, but I am the business and the face and the output. Everything that comes out of my business is me. It's my personality. The names of my stuff, right? The names of the things that you order, they have a silly little meaning, or they have a little, the firestorm seitan, right? It's a reference to Earth Crisis because it's a spicy seitan. You know what I mean? People know me, I think, as a nice, friendly, happy, outgoing person. And I want to put that on the business. So anything that I do in relation to my business, I sort of want to put that stamp on it as a nice, happy, outgoing, friendly business. And I just want to translate that as best as I can, because, again, the people pleaser in me always wants to come out. Somebody orders something that I don't know, I always make sure I follow up with, hey, was everything all right? You know what I mean? I just want to make sure that they were happy. And if they weren't happy, I'm going to make them happy somehow. You know what I mean? And it's really hard to differentiate myself from the business itself, because it's like, it's my thing. And I want people to know it's mine, as maybe a little bit of a self-validation kind of thing, like a little pat on the back, because I finally did this thing that I was always thinking about, talking about. But I should have no shame in that, because like, it's a success, right? It's a personal success. And my friends, family, everyone's been so supportive about it. Where I want that to sort of keep running through as long as I can, that Born from Pain Baked Goods is me. No matter how big it gets, it came from me, and it came from the values that I have. And I think that's important. It's the values that I had and put into it. So I think that's how I would answer that question. It was a tough one for me to think about and to answer like in a concise way, because I just think it's me. It's my personality finally put into, an entity.
Yeah. I love that, man. And I think, again, having known you for a long time, I agree totally. And it's like, it's bringing out like the best parts of who you are and putting that into the brand, while also allowing you to be a human being in the background.
Right.
Okay. Let's talk about Earth Crisis. So for anyone who doesn't know, which would be a lot of people listening to this, Born from Pain is also an Earth Crisis reference. And Earth Crisis is easily one of the most iconic bands in the history of hardcore. I'd say certainly in the top 3 of the biggest, maybe top 5 of the biggest hardcore bands of all time. Mm-hmm. So I went vegetarian because of Youth of Today. I went vegan because of Earth Crisis. And I remember the first time I heard Earth Crisis. I was in Calgary. I was walking from high school to my friend David O'Donnell had a house that was like 2 blocks away from our high school, where we'd all used to go and smoke weed and on the weekends, or not on the weekends, on our breaks. And we were on our way there, and someone gave me their headphones. I was like, yo, you need to listen to this. And I heard Firestorm, and I was like, oh my God, like this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Now, of course, I'd been listening to like Slayer and all of that, but there was just something different about Earth Crisis that, like, even though it was like not super technical, like Slayer, it had like a level of brutality. But then I was like, vegan? Who are these nerds? Like, what is these people vegan? I wasn't vegetarian at the time. So I remember walking past, and it was like winter in Calgary and there's all this snow everywhere. But there was something about it. And it goes to what you said earlier, where it's like, hey, if you're not ready now, I'll be here when you are ready. And, I was into hardcore. I was into punk. I loved Youth of Today, but I hadn't become vegetarian yet. And then, as time, I got out of high school, got into college, and became vegetarian. And I got ready, and Earth Crisis was there, at this point they'd put out like Destroy the Machines. I'd really gotten more into that side of things. And it was interesting because like very few bands can say that they've impacted the world the way that Youth of Today did. Well, first of all, that Minor Threat did, the way that Youth of Today did, the way that Earth Crisis did. And then arguably I'd say like a band like Have Heart has gone on to like, massively impact the world. There's these like iconic bands. But the interesting thing is you've got these bands, and it's easy to relate to a band and wear their t-shirt. But the interesting thing for me is all the channels that came from that, all of the people that have gone to impact the world. So tell us about Earth Crisis and how that helped you feel like you could create some kind of positive change in the world.
All right. Well, I think the first time I heard Earth Crisis was seeing Earth Crisis by accident. so the situation there was like tenfold, because I got to say, I was younger in this hardcore punk scene in New York. Mm-hmm. The PWAC was where people went to shows. The People with AIDS Coalition. It was basically a big warehouse on the backside of this nonprofit organization. In the front, they leased out the back. The PWAC is a very famous venue for Long Island. When I got into hardcore and punk, I obviously started going to these shows because that's where people went. And there was a big show, like Earth Crisis. No idea, right? I was still gleaning information from everywhere. Like, what is this band? What is that? What am I, packed, crazy. The words were like, what are they? This is wild. So that I think maybe the next day or whatever, I went to the mall and I was able to find the All Out War tape at The Wall, which was the music store that I went to. And because of Earth Crisis, this is wild. What is it? Then I read the lyrics and I was like, oh my, it was like over my head at this point as a, mid-teenager. I didn't even really know what the word militant meant at that point, but that's what people will go on to like associate Earth Crisis with, right? Militant straight edge veganism. I'm just like, this is over my head, but it was a very quick learning process being associating with a lot of the people in the hardcore and punk community, learning that vegetarianism, straight edge, and veganism were like a thing within this community, knowing that my mom was vegan and vegetarian, and we sort of would speak about it here and there. And I toyed with the idea of being vegetarian a couple times. And once I got into the community more and frequented shows, saw Earth Crisis and saw this huge like you can imagine what Earth Crisis in 1995-ish, 4 or 5 would be. It was just like, this is important. This is something. And I'm reading the words more and more, some stuff completely over my head. I would ask some questions like, what's the deal? What is straight edge? At that point, I didn't know what straight edge, what is veganism? What is vegetarianism really? Got into it. I read the words. And from there, I was like, oh, I love animals. I don't drink or smoke or do drugs currently. I never have. I never did. I just was like, oh, that's me. So I fell right into the straight edge identity, very young age. I was like, all right, this is cool. And there's people like me. And there's people who really, really care about the environment and animal rights and veganism. So if I'm going to be vegetarian, I might as well try to be vegan, right? That was like a ping pong match for many, many years. It was like, just like cold turkey veganism in 1995, like we're back to the lettuce and tomato sandwiches. You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm a big and guy fries. Too. I really like, lots of fries. Because I'm always hungry. I lost a ton of weight. I was like super, super skinny in high school. I was like, because I wasn't eating anything, you know what I mean? But I was like, it's for the animals. It's for the earth. It's, you know what I mean? I was like really getting into that whole, like I'll suffer, through it so some animals can live, you know what I mean? Really, really, really into that idea. I still am, into that idea, but I'll eat now. Now you can eat a lot better. But then, so the Earth Crisis thing, it's just like transcended all these literal like decades now, right? We're like 3 decades in of Earth Crisis being around and influencing music, and not just music, but the audience and their message. And I had mentioned earlier in a conversation that like they are going to influence generations forever. Yeah. They are going forever. Like my and yours experiences with them will happen to 15-year-olds till the end of time. As the hardcore metal punk community will exist forever. Earth Crisis will exist forever because music is forever. People are going to find it and have that like interaction, like, oh, I care about animals. I care about, the world. I care about my body, whatever sort of route they're going to take. But that's what happened to me. And it's like, they're going to influence for generations. They've influenced me. I'm 43 years old now, and they've been influencing since I was, 15. And to a point where I named my business after one of their songs. And I named one of the items after one of their songs. And I made sure to reach out to them before I did anything. And I was like, hey, listen, love you guys. I started a business, and this was like after I had already registered the business, but I was like, had my fingers crossed. I was like, I named my business this. It's an all vegan business. I hope you're okay with it. Are you not? I hope you're okay with it. Are you okay with this? Because I was using obviously some of their, their artwork, their fonts and stuff, very, very close to all of their artwork and stuff. So I wanted to make sure it was cool. And Scott from Earth Crisis was the one to receive my message, and he said, "Totally cool. Just send me some stuff." And I was like, wow, okay. Like, and I have no connection with them at all. Like, I don't know them as friends or people. I just know them as their Earth Crisis and who they are. I know there's a lot of people in my circle of friends who know them directly, but I was just like a stranger reaching out. I was like, listen, you influenced me. I kind of gave them the same spiel I just told you guys. I was like, I saw you guys in 1995. You influenced me for this long, and I started a business. And that's comes full circle, seeing them as a kid and having that huge impact then to wanting to sort of put their stamp on something via my business, because that's how much I feel like they deserve that, that timeless sort of recognition. And if somebody listens to Earth Crisis by accident because of my business, that's a win in my book as well.
All right. So it's clear that you put your whole heart into your business and that you've had these full circle moments. What challenges have you experienced in the vegan market, in your area and in the community that you live in as a whole?
Sure. Challenges so far. I'm happy to say there hasn't been many, because the community and the support of people that know what I'm doing around here has been like almost overwhelming. It's like, what? I sometimes have to question, like, I look around, like, am I on camera? Like, why are you being so supportive? Why are you helping me so much? Because I don't believe that I deserve that much sort of that positive feedback. But the only challenges I've hit so far is really like how to grow, because things are happening rather quickly for me. My name is getting out there. A lot of support, like I mentioned, from other vegan businesses and some non-vegan businesses that brought my product into their place, and they're using it as part of their menu. So people are getting to know my stuff. I went to last night. In fact, one of the local vegan businesses here, Like No Udder. They do a vegan drinks night.
Like No Udder.
Like No Udder.
So cute.
Yep. They fun fact about them, they were the very first, and it is documented, they were the very first all vegan ice cream truck in the United States. They go back many years. They've been in Providence for a long time. They're owned by wonderful people, and they do this. They call it vegan drinks night. So they have a bunch of vegan food on the menu at a certain place, and the vegan community comes out. And I went by last night, and it was at this place called Lost Valley Pizza, which is a place that has been starting to use my pepperoni on their vegan pizza. A bunch of people there. I got to meet a whole bunch of people from local businesses, and everybody. I mean, I had 3 people. Rich, you're here. Everything's, and I'm like, oh, like I think it has a combination of not socializing for a year and a half, essentially, with the pandemic stuff, like not knowing how to physically interact with people, because I'm not like, I don't go out and socialize. It's not really me. So I'm in big room, people coming up, oh, your stuff's on. And I'm like, turning red, like not knowing how to speak. I introduced myself to someone that I had introduced myself to a month ago, and they carried my product. Like, hi, I'm Rich. Like not even knowing how to conduct myself. But challenges are every day I wake up and I'm like, okay, I told this person and this person I was going to do this thing. It's time. It's like, okay, I still work. I have a job that I have a responsibility to. I have bands that I have responsibility to. I have housework I have responsibility to. I have a lot of things that I need to put time into, right? Time management, I'm good at it, but I'm not great at it. So one of the challenges is like, okay, so I'm supposed to send a box of this and a box of this to this person and this person. Okay, when am I going to get into the kitchen to do that? Okay, I can only do that on this day. It's time. But it's that kind of thing that makes it fun for me. It's like a little puzzle. How am I going to put all these things together? Because I'm going to succeed. Like I can't, at this point, like I said in the beginning, I wanted to hold myself accountable. So any challenge that comes up is like a fun, like, okay, if I can tackle that one, I know how to do it next time. Right. The growth and stuff is the only thing that's a real challenge is just like, I put a little bit of my own money into this to start it up. And that's all I had to start with. And that's all I had. So anything that comes in from the business is going right back into it. Right. So in order to grow, I got to sell a lot of stuff. In order to sell a lot of stuff, I got to make a lot of stuff. If I got to make a lot of stuff, that's a lot of time. So it's all sort of exponentially like more responsibility, more time, more money. And as a small business, I don't want to, and this is a personal thing, I don't want to reach out to other avenues for financial help in order to get to these places. I want to make it happen myself as best as I can. So my only concern is that I might take on too much at once. But if the vegan drinks night last night and all the people that were coming up to me and saying, hey, if you need any help, if you need anything, oh, I can do that for it. So much help. It's like, you know what? I think I got this. I think it'll be okay. I just got to, organize my time correctly and put some focus in and really just go for it. So hopefully I have some bigger challenges for, next time. But I think right now my challenges are just really organizing time and just making more money so I can grow.
I love that, man. Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
And you might have already done this, like that kind of like, how do I grow? How do I scale up? How do I do these things? You should reach out to Chris Callahan from Magic Vegan Bacon Grease.
Okay.
His story is the one where it's like, oh, I kind of by mistake, I made a business. So it's different from yours because you intentionally made a business, but that scalability and that like warm reception is the same. He could probably give you some really good advice. Sorry, Chris, I'm kind of volunteering you for this, but you're a very cool person. So I'm sure you'll do it. As we're closing off, I got 3 questions for you.
Yes.
All right. The first one is I'm going to restrain how much you can talk about each one of these things because they're tough questions. All right. What's the goal for Born from Pain in 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years? And you can only use one sentence for each one of those answers. 2 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Okay. In 2 years, Born from Pain will be a small storefront in Providence, Rhode Island. 5 years, Born from Pain will have at least one storefront in the New England area outside of Rhode Island. And in 10 years, I will be retired and people will be running my business for me.
Respect to you. The deepest level of respect. All right. Second question. What is for you the most impactful verbal assault song?
That's so tough.
That's why I asked it, man. I'm not out here asking the easy stuff.
I'm going to have to take a pass. I'm going to have to take a pass on that one.
Okay. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to circle back. You don't get to fully take a pass, but you can gather your strength there on that one. Okay. Second to last, but kind of was intended to be the last question. We get people from all walks of life that listen to this podcast. We get traditional business people from the corporate world. We get punks, we get hardcore people, we get artists, we get athletes, because really what everyone comes to the podcast for, it's about leadership. And this is a story of leadership. And there's an element of self-leadership where you're talking about like, I wanted to be accountable, but there's also like leadership in the market and leadership in the community saying like, hey, I can do this. So from just a broad idea, if you were to say, what have you learned about leadership as a result of doing this business? What is it?
Oh, man. This business in particular has shown me that like there's a supportive community, a vegan community here, and people appreciate my products. And I put the pride and the heart and the love into my products, right? Showing people that I care and being a person that being the being the business, like this physical embodiment of my business. I want to show people that it's not about money. It's not about popularity. It's not about any of these things that some people might start a business for. It's not about attention. It's about providing a quality product that people enjoy, that people can talk about and people can come back to, and doing something like that, seeing the reaction of my friends, when I do the pop-ups to the food truck or whatever, and they come and they're like, man, this is awesome. You're doing such a great thing. And those points where those people came up and had seitan for the first time and then came back. To me, it feels like leadership in a way where it's like this, I'm this new little thing, right? With a figurehead. I'm the figurehead. And I keep going and I keep going and I keep creating and keep putting stuff out there. And I keep getting myself in small businesses as a sort of wholesale accounts and stuff. And people can see what I'm doing. And this comes back to like what I was doing with the podcast. People can see what myself and my business is doing. And that might motivate somebody to take a step that they didn't think they could take. And that was the whole point of this. So I took a step I never thought I could take by starting a business. When I finally did it, I was like, this is great. Maybe this could motivate somebody to do something that they didn't think they could do. And I just continue on with that in the back of my head. I just continue to be me, be positive, be the person that I always knew I could be, by just finally taking leaps into these realms that I had not a lot about. I have a little bit of experience working in the service industry and stuff, but just finally just going out and doing it and being that person, and hopefully like people seeing it and seeing that's a positive thing. Maybe that person will take that step themselves. I think that's really important for me. And I don't know if that really is a good point of starting a business, but to me it is. Just like this, my business is about food. It's about having a great meal and moving on, right? But in the back of my head too, it's all about sort of like a positive thing that's in the world. And I'm really proud of that, actually,
I love that, man. All right. So as we're closing off, Monica, anything you want to add in as we're coming to the end here?
I just have to say that it's so apparent that Born from Pain is a labor of love. And the story's been really inspiring. And that to me that's what leadership is taking a leap. So I commend you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. This has been it has been a big leap, and it's nerve-wracking, but interactions like this make everything so much easier for me. So I really appreciate that.
Heck yeah. All right, Rich, on your end, any last words, including what your favorite verbal assault song is?
Last words, let's see. As this conversation, you can kind of get the idea that I'm a helper, I'm a people pleaser and stuff. So my business is out there to put a nice meal on your table, have a great meal, enjoy something new, maybe learn something about veganism, maybe not, maybe learn about Earth Crisis, maybe not. But just the thing is, if you don't think you can do it, don't let that stop you in your tracks, because I finally, at 42 years old, I finally started the business I always wanted to start. Verbal assault. I can't. On verbal assault, on the topic of verbal assault, I work with Simmons Farm. They were one of the first farms in Rhode Island. And this comes full circle here. Simmons Farm is also Atomic Action Records, which is putting out the Exit on reissue.
Pre-orders launched today.
And Brian from Simmons Farm has been like the first person who really helped me out when I first started. He put my seitan in the farm's farm stand and has been one of the biggest helpers. But as far as my favorite verbal assault song, I can't answer that question.
Okay. Well, I think giving them that little pop to Atomic Action is enough. I think that's a very respectful way to go there. And as we're closing off, I'm going to tell you a little Earth Crisis story. So when Earth Crisis reformed and they put out To the Death, I got a phone call from Todd Jones, and Todd Jones said, "Hey, have you listened to the new Earth Crisis?" And I said, "No, I'm a little nervous to listen to it. I love them so much. I'm worried about listening to it." He said, "You got to listen to it, man. I'm going to tell you what it is, what it makes me think of." And I said, "Okay." He's like, "I want you to think in the future that there's no more people. There's only robots." and the robots protect the animals. So human beings don't exist anymore. There's just robots. And those robots are in an ongoing war to protect animals. And I was like, wow, this is really bizarre. And then he's silent for a second. He goes, and those robots are straight edge. And I gotta tell you, I went out and got that record right away. The idea that there's just some future where human beings don't exist anymore, that we've been replaced by robots who are in an ongoing battle to protect animals. Like they're a war. He said a war. I don't know who they were fighting, but they're in a war to protect the animals, and all of the robots are straight edge, which is like the best explanation for a record I've ever heard.
I love it.
Listen, thank you so much for your time. Ever since I heard about the business, I've been following it with just huge anticipation. I knew you were going to do something so from the heart. And from both Monica and I, thank you so much for your time. This is a really cool conversation.
Thank you guys so much. I was really, really excited when you reached out to have me on. It blew me away to get that message. So thank you so much. Again, all the support and positive words, really helpful for a person like me. So I hope to continue on that upward trajectory.
Awesome. And for everyone out there, I just want to remind you, what you do matters. So whether it's playing in a punk band, or it's a kind word to someone, or taking a leap and saying like, you know what, I'm going to do this thing, there's a ripple effect that you don't even know about. So just like Rich said, the Earth crisis is going to be influencing people for the next 15, 20, 30, 40, 100 years, whatever it is. A business like Born from Pain is going to have untold positive impact. And it's just because someone was willing to take the leap. And as Monica said, that's what leadership is. So with that, we'll see everyone in the outro. And Spencer, drop the beat.